It's a real pleasure for me to return to this forum after 4 years. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for having me over and over again. History is evolving rather quickly at the moment. Since I was last here, we've experienced a once-in-a-century pandemic. Russia has started an unprovoked war against Ukraine, putting the world on the brink of nuclear threat. By challenging the legitimacy of perfectly conducted elections, various political leaders are playing with destroying democracies around the world, including in America. Simultaneously, artificial intelligence, the subject of my talk today, has burst into the forefront of popular consciousness with the advent of generative AI, large language models, ChatGPT, and so on. All this sounds like jargons to you. They are. You don't need to worry about it for this evening. For the moment, just let's work with the terminology of artificial intelligence. If you have questions, I will answer them as we go along. Today, I will explore a lot of complex issues. My recommendation is that you pull out your mobile phones, silence them, but keep your online notepad handy. Otherwise, you will not remember what I'm talking about at the beginning of the talk by the end of the talk. So we won't be able to have a very interactive Q&A if you don't remember. I had a hard time pulling together so many important planet-scale problems in one place in a succinct way. I will do my best, but please take some notes so we have a really vibrant Q&A session. When I first spoke here in 2016, I spoke on the future of capitalism. I discussed how mass-scale automation engineered by artificial intelligence stands to render human beings useless, with nothing to do, with no mechanism to earn a livelihood. The economic impact of AI on society was my primary concern. My general conclusion was that we need universal basic income, a form of economic redistribution to keep society from spinning out of control. The basic premise of universal basic income is that all human beings are given a stipend by the government, even when they cannot be employed. The rationale is that if jobs become scarce, society can still have a reasonable, stable method of operating without spinning into chaos, especially social unrest and crime. This conclusion is now by and large an accepted remedy in a world that is about to go through extensive automation. Economists have come to some degree of consensus that UBI will increasingly become necessary. However, it is likely to take a couple of decades to fully infiltrate society. So we are not quite going to a post-work world immediately. A post-work world is coming. It is inevitable, but we still have a bit of time. In my second talk in 2019, I spoke about man and Superman, the impact of how AI-driven augmentation of the human species will render one part of civilization, man, extinct. The other part, the part that becomes enhanced by AI, will thrive. This enhanced Superman will compose music like Beethoven, write poetry like Tagore, make scientific discoveries like Einstein, and so on. This too is becoming a consensus prediction in intellectual circles today. Man is going to become AI enhanced. Human capacity is going to be drastically improved with the use of AI. Do we still consider this AI enhanced species mankind? Maybe not, but that's beside the point. This enhanced organism is the direction in which evolution is taking us. This is the future of artificial intelligence. There will be Superman in not too distant a future. Now, I stand before you in 2023. The world has evolved. AI has quickened pace. There is both good news and bad news in that quickening of technological advancement. Let us start with the good news. India has leapfrogged to an extremely positive strategic position. Some of this is due to the movements in geopolitics. American hegemony has ended. China has emerged as a parallel power with imperialistic ambitions. The West wants India on its side to counterbalance China. A lot of India's prospects, however, are due to its technological capability, and artificial intelligence sits at the heart of that know-how. World-class technology companies with AI expertise are now emerging out of India and selling products and services on a global scale. One such, Cure.ai, offers a product that can analyze chest X-rays at lightning speed and screen for TB, for example, or any kind of lung disease. I spoke with the CEO, Prashant Warrior, recently. He told me, and I quote, "Chest X-ray is the most common imaging modality. There are about 1.3 billion chest X-rays taken every year around the world. If you look at India, for example, most X-rays are not reported by radiologists. There is a super high volume, and radiologists are busy with their CT scans, MRIs, and ultrasounds. They don't have time to deal with X-rays. Similarly, if you look at most geographies, X-rays are not reported well or not reported at all. Error rate is anywhere between 20% to 23%. It's a very basic modality. X-rays came in the 1800s. It's old. It's cheap. X-ray is still valuable, but with the increasing volume, radiologists don't have the time to interpret that. This is a perfect use case for AI. How do we automate X-ray reporting? The hypothesis for Cure.ai was to make X-ray reporting similar to pathology reporting. Pathology reporting used to be done manually in the 80s. You used to count the number of white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets using a microscope. It became fully automated in the 2000s when machines came in. Cure.ai wanted to get X-ray reporting to the point where you can rely on a machine to give you the report. Technology is very close to that. Cure.ai found their first customer in the Philippines. This customer was running TB screening. They had 4 mobile vans. There are a lot of Rotary people here. You would resonate with this case study. They had 4 mobile vans. These vans had an X-ray system inside the van. They would start from Manila and travel around the country for about 2 weeks. Then they would come back to Manila. Every day, they screened about 200 to 300 people. Let's say 1,400 in a week. They had many X-rays. There was no radiologist in the van. They collected the X-rays at the end of 2 weeks and then sent them out for interpretation. Back in 2018, it took them 4 to 5 weeks to get those X-rays read. A patient who came in on day 1 would get the result 4 weeks later. That patient was already gone and had started some treatment or the other. Cure.ai technology, this is Indian technology, an Indian company has built this technology, could get this report in 1 minute. 4 to 5 weeks versus 1 minute. This is the beauty of AI. And this technology has been developed by an Indian company. Now 600 to 700 hospitals around the world are using this product. Tuberculosis is still rampant in the more resource-constrained areas of the world, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, so on. There are about 10 million to 11 million TB cases every year. It's still a problem. A lot of people still die from TB. So here we have Indian AI technology addressing a big medical problem and having a huge impact. Cure.ai also offers a stroke care product that can quickly assess the need for different categories of intervention within 5 minutes, saving lives, saving money, making healthcare fast and scalable. Chest X-rays have a high volume. Head CT scan, for example, requires speed. AI can manage volume and speed. Head CTs are taken when you're looking at critical cases. When you want to do something quickly, you do a CT. You need a fast interpretation. For a stroke patient, every minute that goes by, brain cells are dying. You want to intervene quickly. Intervention is sometimes slow, especially at night because radiologists are not available. But why wait? Why not use AI to interpret these scans? The use cases are simple. There are 2 kinds of treatments for stroke. One is thrombolytic, and the other is thrombectomy. Thrombolytic is when you administer an anticoagulant, which will dissolve the clot in the brain. If you administer it to someone who has a bleed, their bleed will worsen. It will be fatal. You want to rule out a bleed so you can administer that thrombolytic agent. That is what AI is able to do within a minute. Just quickly figure out whether this is what they should do. Second is to perform a thrombectomy, and for that you need to look at a larger area in the brain. This is also something AI can do, and with great speed. These are just a few examples from a single company in India. There's a tremendous amount of work going on in AI-driven healthcare, from drug discovery to diagnostic imaging to personalized medicine to robotic surgery. We've just seen successful vaccine development for COVID take place within a year. This is accelerating even further. Most experts believe that the COVID pandemic is not the last one we will see. So it's good to know that humanity will have AI to help cope with future pandemics and have rapid vaccine development technology on hand when we get hit again with another virus. All this makes me tremendously optimistic about the possibilities of caring for 1.5 billion people in India and 10 billion human beings on our planet. We are going to 10 billion population in the upcoming decades. Indian technologists and entrepreneurs are going to play a very big role in both. We will, within a couple of decades, arrive at a point where even the most remote parts of the planet are well served by modern medicine. There will be AI doctors and AI surgeons administering new drugs and treatments invented by AI algorithms. Medicine, today a privilege of those who can afford, can become universally available as a democratic right of all human beings. And this can happen within a couple of decades. All this is going to move really, really fast. A parallel revolution will take place in education. Today, the world struggles with finding good teachers to educate children. Children, young adults, even adults, because so much is changing and continuous education is essential to staying on top of one's profession. We're definitely moving towards AI-enabled personalized tutoring at all levels now. All students, even those who are below average, with the help of personalized tutoring, will perform at an above average level. And because this is also a technology-driven solution, it is completely scalable. This is not restricted to one or two people. Millions and millions of students can use personalized tutoring. You don't understand how to solve an algebra equation? No problem. Here, your AI tutor can work with you for half an hour and give you personalized practice. By the time the tutoring session is over, your confidence and self-esteem would have skyrocketed. You don't speak English? Okay, let's do the session in Bengali. No problem. Oh, and you want to learn English? Your AI tutor will also take care of that. All this can also happen in the next couple of decades. In fact, Maharaj, Ramakrishna Mission schools and hospitals should put in place a comprehensive AI strategy in collaboration with the technology companies working on these problems. This is directly relevant to your work. Now, in parallel with advances in healthcare and education, AI transplants and human augmentation technology will also advance. Gene editing technology will advance. Many diseases and illnesses will be edited out at the gene level. Down syndrome, for example, can be edited out at the gene level. Schizophrenia can be edited out at the gene level. Most importantly, humanity's fast path into supermanhood will accelerate. Let's say around 2050, human history will start to bifurcate into man and superman. This was the topic of my last talk here. If this topic interests you, you can check it out on YouTube. There is a moral question we must contend with in this evolution. Who gets to upgrade to Superman? And who gets left behind as man? Man will become extinct. So the ethical answer to this question is humanity must find a way to upgrade all 10 billion humans on the planet to Superman. No one must get left behind. Now, if you're like me, you're wondering, how do we afford all this? Great. AI doctors, AI surgeons, AI tutors can infiltrate society. But who pays for all this? For all this technology? How would the economics of AI-driven education and healthcare work? And who pays for 10 billion people to be upgraded to Superman? The answer to this question takes us back to my 2016 talk on the future of capitalism. Do you remember that I predicted that capitalism will be dead in the face of a society run by AI? I stand by that conclusion. There is going to be an enormous boost in productivity in large enterprises with the insertion of AI into every function, from manufacturing to logistics to construction to financial services. This is going to yield immense profits. But these profits are going to be generated by machines, not human beings. Human beings are no longer going to be necessary. Human beings will not have jobs. Therefore, those profits would have to be taxed heavily to offer large-scale societal benefits. This is socialism. This is redistribution. And it will have to happen. Otherwise, there will be social unrest, there will be crime. If I had any doubt about the future of capitalism in 2016 or 2019, in 2023, I have none. Capitalism will be dead. The time has come for socialism. Otherwise, society will spin out of control. Note one thing, however. There is a difference between socialism and communism. In communism, the state takes away the rights of free press, individual property rights, freedom of speech, etc., that are all important tenets of democracy. Socialism offers universal education, universal health care, even universal basic income, but does not withdraw individual rights. And it certainly does not destroy democracy. Unfortunately, in 2023, survival of democracy can no longer be taken for granted. Whether it is communism or fascism, democracy is under threat. Does AI aid this threat, or can it hinder its nefarious progress? Let us contemplate that issue. The primary tool of politics is the narrative, the story. For example, Donald Trump's declaration that the American election was stolen from him is a story, and he has successfully peddled this to the American electorate. Unfortunately, AI has put unprecedented capacity in the hands of politicians to distribute whatever garbage narrative they wish to propagate, whatever hate they want to fan, and with this extraordinary capacity, propaganda machines are actively destroying balanced, centrist societies, replacing them with extremist, populist masses whose general state of being is anger and hatred. Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, YouTube are each full of propaganda, and they will continue to be so. There is no way of checking this. AI gives these platforms great ability to galvanize large masses of people around simplistic storylines. So from the benevolent prospects of AI like universal education and universal healthcare, we have arrived at the prospect of communism and fascism and death of democracy. Unfortunately, India is not immune to this threat. The other dangerous prospect is the threat of war. As we can see, conflict between sovereign nations is suddenly back with a vengeance. The Russia-Ukraine war is still happening in somewhat old-fashioned ways. Drones are the extent of AI truly in action right now. But in the upcoming decades, war is also going to change into AI warfare. A sovereign nation wanting to wield power over another can use AI to destroy a banking system or a power grid, or in India, Aadhaar, for instance. How is India going to defend itself if such an attack is launched by another foreign power? AI warfare has two aspects, offense and defense. India has thus far not been an offensive country. It doesn't go around attacking neighbors to gain territory, but India's neighbors tend not to be as benign. For decades, India has learned to coexist with a nuclear power across its border. Within reason, all nations have behaved with restraint. But AI is a different animal. While nuclear technology is expensive and esoteric, and only very few know how it works, AI is widespread. In the upcoming decades, it will become even more widespread, even more democratized in access and in usability. And then everyone, from little terrorist organizations to entire sovereign nations, would be tempted to play with it. This is a real danger. And unlike nuclear disarmament, AI disarmament is an unlikely scenario. There is a lot of talk right now about regulating AI. It's a complex topic. Governments are not AI experts, how to regulate is not very easy for them to figure out. Many thought leaders also worry about a superior intelligence coming into being and what that would do on its own. You know, Superman is really intelligent, and Superman, AI enhanced Superman, has a mind of his own, her own. So what is that superior intelligence going to do? This is, you know, is humanity creating a Frankenstein-like monster that we could lose control over? This is certainly a concern in the long run, and it's being discussed quite a lot. There's no good answer to this yet. And there's a school of thought that thinks there is no answer to this question. We'll find out. Humanity may destroy itself with this evolution, this development in evolution. In the short term, however, AI in the hands of bad actors is a bigger and more immediate concern. And this concern is current. The Superman spinning out of control concern is later. The bad actors concern is immediate. Evil exists. Without wandering into theology, we have to acknowledge that evil exists. And evil will do evil with AI. Before I switch to another major topic, I want to address an inevitability that we are headed towards. It is something I expressed concern about in my 2016 talk. A post-work society is about to become reality by mid-century. How do we function in that world order? Let us assume the best-case scenario of universal basic income, universal education, universal healthcare, universal artificial augmentation once that becomes available. In other words, universal species-level enhancement from man to Superman, 10 billion superhumans roaming the planet by the end of this century. I don't think this is going to happen. Practically speaking, this is not going to happen. But in this thought experiment, let us assume that it does happen. But Superman has to exist, for the most part, in a post-work society. Work is no longer going to take up 8 to 10 hours of the day. What is Superman going to do? And now we need to enter the realm of history, anthropology, and philosophy to look for answers. In the beginning of time, man hunted and gathered. Man sat around the fire telling stories. Man sang, man danced. On the walls of caves, man drew pictures. The beginning of civilization was when man stopped to take care of fellow human beings. As civilization progressed, as property rights emerged, as the concept of money emerged, man's desire for status increased. Man was no longer content with drawing on cave walls in private. Man wanted to hang paintings on museum galleries. Man was no longer content by telling stories to fellow tribe members. Man wanted to write books that sold millions of copies. Simple, collaborative tribal society structures fell away. Aggressive, competitive, globalized world orders emerged. Work became a key tool in this intensely competitive world order. Fueled by intense ambition for excess, man forgot the pleasure of community, family, friends, dance, storytelling took a backseat as work became the dominant force in society. The post-work world order will offer us an opportunity to return to simpler values that offer very serious returns. Is Superman going to be driven by status and excess? Or is Superman going to pay attention to being present in the moment, enjoy the sublime beauty of roses, the taste of delicious home-cooked food, the pleasure of painting without the need for external validation by critics? Will Superman dance? The reason I ask these apparently silly questions is as follows. AI can create art. AI can compose music. Whether or not a superhuman being can compose music like Beethoven or paint like Van Gogh, AI can certainly do both. In that scenario, what is the value of human-generated music or art? And do you need Einstein-level intelligence in a physicist to come up with advanced scientific discovery? AI may be better at it. I happen to also be a painter. When I was growing up here in Kolkata, I used to come here to Gol Park, to the home of my teacher, my Master Moshe, Sri Ramananda Bandyopadhyay, every Saturday morning and paint for 3 hours. To me, painting is a spiritual process. I don't paint to gain recognition. I paint because I enjoy the feeling of color and brush and what happens when on paper, when I pick up my brush and apply paint to it. It is a deeply visceral, organic process, a form of meditation. I know from my many conversations with Ramananda Babu that he also views painting in the same way. Yes, he has gained recognition as an artist, but his primary motivation is that spiritual process. And this is my conclusion about AI-generated art, music, poetry, and literature. AI can do something mechanically. Human beings experience the same creative process as a spiritual endeavor, something that AI cannot take away. This, and thus, in post-work society, the spirituality of aesthetics, of creativity, of painting, singing, playing the piano, will still remain a source of pleasure, joy, transcendence. Notice, I have not mentioned dance yet. That is because dance falls in a category of even greater power and importance. Dance is movement. Movement is good for well-being. Dancing to music requires the brain to function with great agility. This kind of mental agility is excellent for mental well-being, including for aging. Dancing with another person or a group of people has even more benefits of connection and community. And all this is outside of the reach of artificial intelligence. Robots can dance all they want. Makes no difference. Man and Superman will also dance. In a post-work society, I believe dance should be placed at the center of societal structure. Just like our ancestors danced when they assembled around the fire before human life started to become complicated, man and Superman should dance. And I assume that by now you can tell that I'm an avid dancer. Next, we're going to have to deal with a subject that threatens India's otherwise bright prospects in the 21st century: climate change. You are all acutely aware of the intense heat India is experiencing. There are also acute water problems on the horizon. The Gangotri Glacier is melting. On water, I have long been of the opinion that India's long coastline needs to be densely populated with water desalination plants. While it is an expensive solution in the grand scheme of things, it is also the most obvious solution. In a sense, it is a low-hanging fruit. Seawater can and should be transformed into drinkable water. It has to happen. India has a very long coastline, so this is definitely doable. And then AI can be used to distribute water efficiently, make sure leakages are automatically fixed. Today, there's a lot of water wastage that happens all over India because pipes leak and, taps leak and so on. Faucets are open. But AI can be, installed to fix all of that. So AI can enhance the overall efficiency of water supply and distribution in India, and all that is going to have enormous impact on the water problem. On heat, also there are many applications of AI on the horizon. These are benevolent applications, from smart buildings, green buildings, clean energy, smart grids for distributing power. In commercial, industrial, residential real estate, AI will play a very big role to achieve efficiency, control emissions, and improve sustainability. Policy-level interventions need to drive India starting now. We don't have time to waste. Cars, of course, are a huge contributor to the climate crisis. Unfortunately, India has encouraged car ownership at a massive scale. In this era of ride-sharing, why do people need to buy so many cars of their own? Why can't we design a society with far fewer cars on the streets, far better public transportation, ride-sharing, and incentives for using them? There are stark consequences to India's inability to manage the climate crisis. And if the climate crisis is allowed to unravel unchecked, then we will have far fewer of the species of man left to upgrade to Superman. People are going to die. If temperature increases continue unchecked, hundreds of millions of people are going to die. We don't want that. India has to get its act together and design good policy so that 1 billion people do not get wiped out of the face of this earth. That brings me to the role of policy in general and to AI policy in particular. The problem the West is trying to get its arm around right now is how to design AI policy that doesn't hinder the development of benevolent AI. I've discussed a lot of benevolent AI use cases. AI could give us tremendous benefits. So we need to continue to develop AI. We shouldn't stop the enormous progress in AI development, but we do need to slow things down and check the proliferation of destructive AI. But this is a very complex problem to solve. That balancing act is incredibly complicated. As I said earlier, AI is abundantly available right now, and expertise is being acquired rapidly and democratically. An online education platform called Udemy has some 8 million people learning AI programming as we speak. Large platforms like OpenAI, Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, Google Cloud are all building AI capabilities and easy-to-use programming tools to accelerate this democratization. It is going to be very hard to control what people do with this capability. In addition, people with superior AI knowledge do not really work for governments. Governments have very low levels of understanding of AI in general, and thus they cannot really figure out how to design policy. AI is moving extraordinarily fast, so the policy-level interventions need to happen fairly quickly. But all governments are on shaky ground on this subject. You probably read the Times of India article about Rishi Sunak talking about the dangers ahead. And all smart governments like the UK and at the moment our government, the United States government, and the Indian government are all relatively smart governments, they're all terrified. Now, if America switches to Donald Trump in the next election, that's going to be a whole different story, but for the moment we are okay. In addition, governments also need offensive and defensive AI to manage defense and homeland security. There too, hiring the best engineers is not so easy for governments. The private sector pays exorbitant sums of money to good engineers. Governments cannot compete with them. Another issue is different governments will deal with AI policy differently. Some will be really aggressive, some will be more measured. For example, once AI augmentation of humans becomes feasible, an autocratic government could create aggressive policies to force full population augmentation. A more democratic government, moderate democratic government, would go more slowly, give more freedom of choice, and as such, could end up falling behind in the race to survive. All this is going to be extremely messy. As we see over and again in history, everything is driven by the story, the narrative. The key narratives, even today, are often controlled by religion. What position, for example, would the Catholic Church take vis-à-vis the issue of species-level augmentation aided by AI? Would they support the move from man to Superman? Well, I would say we have to get the Catholic Church on the side of augmentation for the simple reason that they have such widespread control over what people choose to do with their lives. Therefore, a narrative has to be woven by the Catholic Church to justify augmentation and to endorse it and to recommend it. Hinduism is in a different situation. There is no equivalent of the Catholic Church. So how does India spin a narrative that makes augmentation acceptable to Indians? And not just the Hindus, but also the Muslims. It would be fair to assume that the autocratic states like China will make augmentation happen faster. The democracies need help from religious groups and other influential mouthpieces. And that, logically, brings us to political mouthpieces. In COVID, in America, we were bewildered to discover that vaccines could be a political issue. The libertarian right decided that vaccine enforcement was an encroachment on individual liberty. Science be damned. I shudder to think how we're going to enforce a much greater encroachment of individual liberty in the form of human augmentation. To conclude, full-scale species-level augmentation is possible. Humanity can be saved by upgrading itself using AI, but it is not going to be a simple process. The upcoming decades are going to be extremely messy. I've covered a lot of complex topics today. I don't know how much you have absorbed, but if I have been able to stir your thinking on these important, complex, messy issues, that is all I wanted to achieve today. I'll be happy to take questions and dialogue on any of these topics.